What is going on, NFL fans? Welcome back to the channel. 1 year down, 4,000 subs. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you and your family had a killer New Year's and holiday season. Let's get into the NFL playoff scenarios going into the final week of the season. There are still a ton of playoff spots to be had in each conference. There are tons of games that are going to be crazy. It's like playoff atmosphere already, guys. We're getting a week 18 with tons of opportunities for teams to make the playoffs. It's going to be so much fun. I cannot wait. Let's break down the current playoff picture, who's still alive, and who can sneak into the playoffs this year. Those number one seeds are already locked up in each of the conferences. The NFC, the 49ers got it, and then the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC. That's a potential Super Bowl matchup too, guys. I don't know which one of these teams is going to beat San Francisco and Baltimore at home. A lot of these teams that are sneaking into the playoffs or limping into the playoffs like the Eagles, they don't really play good on the road, man. So it's going to be tough sledding for teams to beat Baltimore at home and the San Francisco 49ers. But if the season ended after Week 17, these are the games that we would see in potential playoff matchups. We would have 7-seed Packers traveling to Jerry's World to take on the Cowboys. I like the Cowboys in that spot. Then we got probably the most interesting game. We have Matt Stafford potentially returning to Detroit to play the Lions. Lions. This is probably going to be my favorite game if this one actually happens. There's so much redemption for Stafford, and the Lions are playing a lot better. They're very good at home. They're a lot better at home, so it should be a really good game. Oh, man, I think the Rams are going on the road and make an upset, dude. I think he's going to torch that Lions defense. They're not so good. That Lions defense is a little suspect. I think Matt Stafford has a day. Then we have the Eagles at Tampa Bay. I want to pick the Eagles. My heart says pick the Eagles. But, dude, they are terrible. They just got smoked by the Cardinals. Dude, that coaching staff is a joke, man. Defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, all have to go. They're clueless. Brian Johnson is like playing Tecmo Bowl from like 1990. He has like 8 plays. It's a joke. I think Tampa Bay wins that game at home, man. The Eagles look demoralized. I don't like the Birds, man. And then we go to the Colts at the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins blow the brakes off the Colts, but I don't think the Colts are going to get in. I think they're going to get bumped out this week. Then we have Bills, Chiefs. Bills can lock up the AFC East if they beat the Dolphins this weekend, so that's a huge game. A lot of playoff implications there because if they win, they get a home game. So it'll be a lot different, these kind of wild card game scenarios. Then we have the Cleveland Browns right now traveling to Jacksonville to take the Jaguars. This is another game that I think could change. Jacksonville could find themselves from the outside looking in if they don't win this weekend. And the Browns look really good, man. I think the Browns go on the road and beat Jacksonville if they play Jacksonville. Okay, now I want to go through each of the teams that is still alive and how they make it into the playoffs. We're going to start first with the NFC. San Francisco, Lions, Cowboys, Eagles, Rams have already clinched. But the NFC East is still up for grabs. So if the Cowboys win, they lock up the NFC East. If the Eagles win and the Cowboys lose, the Eagles will win the division and get a home game. It looks like Dallas is probably going to win the NFC East. They play the Washington Commanders and the Eagles play the Giants. Man, the Cowboys would be really laying an egg if they lost to the Commanders this week. All right, let's break down all of these scenarios, right? The Atlanta Falcons have to win over New Orleans, and Tampa Bay has to lose to the Carolina Panthers for the Atlanta Falcons to get in. Not a lot has to happen, but man, Tampa Bay losing to Carolina, I just don't see that happen. And Carolina got blown out again last week. They're terrible, man. So I like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win that, move on, get that playoff home game with a win. All right, like I just mentioned, the Cowboys will win the NFC East with a win over the Commanders. It doesn't matter if the Eagles win. If they win, they lock it up. A lot has to happen. They have to lose that game, and the Eagles have to win. I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles lost. The Packers play the Bears this week, and they need to win this game against the Bears or a tie versus the Bears and a Seahawks loss, or tie, and then Arizona plus the Saints loss, or tie versus Falcons, or tie versus the Bears, Seahawks loss. All this crazy stuff has to happen if they don't win that game against the Bears. They got to win. If they win, they're in. And then we go to the Minnesota Vikings. They have to win over the Lions, and then the Packers need to lose, the Seahawks need to lose, and the Saints or the Buccaneers have to lose in all those scenarios. The Vikings aren't making the playoffs, guys. Sorry, Vikings fans. You guys aren't getting in. And then with the Saints, versus Atlanta, Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, they clinched the NFC South title with a win over the Falcons and a Buccaneers loss or tie, or a tie versus the Falcons and a Buccaneers loss. I don't think the Saints are going to get in either. It's a long shot for them. That Atlanta-New Orleans game is going to be a lot of fun. Then they're going to have to do some scoreboard watching. And then the Eagles already in. They already made the playoffs. But if they win and the Cowboys lose, they'll win the NFC East. And that's the only real way they can actually win their division, because they lost somehow to the Arizona Cardinals last week. OMG. And then we got the Seahawks, man. They're playing Arizona, who looked pretty good against the Eagles. Or do the Eagles just look that bad? I don't know. They clinch a playoff berth with a win over the Cardinals plus a Packers loss or tie. Or a tie versus the Cardinals, Packers loss, then either a Buccaneers loss or tie, or the Saints losing. Then we move on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They clinched the NFC South with a win over the Panthers. Also, a tie versus the Panthers and a Saints loss or tie. Then they clinch a playoff berth if they tie versus the Panthers, the Seahawks lose, and the Packers lose or tie. So the Buccaneers just got to go take care of business against a terrible Carolina Panthers team, and they will get in. Okay, let's move on to the AFC games and see which AFC teams are still alive and the best games to watch for these playoff scenarios. 4 teams have already locked up spots in the AFC, including number 1 seed Baltimore Ravens. The other teams, the Chiefs, Browns, and Dolphins, all just locked up playoff berths, and seeding will be determined this weekend. All right, the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins, the NFL game of the week on NBC, 8:20 Eastern Time. Woo! Whoever wins this game wins the AFC East. Wow, that's going to be so amazing. I can't wait for that game. It's going to be sick. So the Buffalo Bills will clinch the AFC title with a win over the Dolphins. They will also clinch a playoff berth with a Buffalo tie, or Pittsburgh loss or tie, Jacksonville loss or tie, or a Houston-Indianapolis tie. So there's lots of scenarios for the Bills to get in. I don't see any situation where the Bills don't at least get into the playoffs. I think they might actually beat the Dolphins this weekend, but I think they get in either way. Then the Houston Texans at the Indianapolis Colts, man. The Houston Texans clinch the AFC South and get that division title with a Houston win and a Jacksonville Jaguars loss or tie. Then Houston will clinch a playoff berth with a Houston win or a Houston tie plus a Jacksonville loss and a Pittsburgh Steelers loss or tie. It's pretty much a must-win game for the Colts. The only way they win the AFC South division title is with an Indianapolis win and a Jacksonville loss or tie. Also, they can win with an Indianapolis tie and a Jacksonville loss. They also can clinch a playoff berth with an Indy win, or if they tie and Pittsburgh loses or ties their game. Now let's move on to the Jacksonville Jaguars traveling to Tennessee to play the Titans. Remember, the Titans are always really good and play tough at home. The Jaguars, they're kind of limping into the playoffs. Jacksonville can clinch the AFC South division title with a Jacksonville win or a Jacksonville tie and an Indianapolis and Houston tie. They can also clinch a playoff berth with a Jacksonville tie plus Pittsburgh losing or tying. Or if Pittsburgh loses, Denver loses or ties, Houston and Indy doesn't end in a tie. That's how Jacksonville gets into the playoffs. Then we move on to the Miami Dolphins. In order to clinch the AFC title, they have to win against Buffalo. And since they're 11-5, they already clinched a playoff berth. Then we move on to the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens will be resting their starters in this game, guys. They already have the first round bye. So if you're playing Survivor, maybe taking Pittsburgh, if you haven't used them, is a good spot. I would like to see what the line is, because Baltimore, I can't see them playing any of their starters at all. That would be stupid. You need to rest them. Then it's getting like 2 rest weeks, and then you get to come back at like 150% and kick the shit out of whoever you play. So let's see how the Pittsburgh Steelers can clinch a playoff spot. Pittsburgh would have to win, and Buffalo would have to lose. Or Pittsburgh win with a Jacksonville loss or tie. Also, they can get in if Pittsburgh wins and Houston and Indianapolis ties. Or Pittsburgh ties plus a Jacksonville loss plus Indy and Houston not ending in a tie. Oh my God, these scenarios are insane. Then we have Jacksonville losing, Denver winning, Houston and Indy doesn't win in a tie. All those 5 scenarios give the Pittsburgh Steelers a playoff berth. All right, guys, that wraps up the playoff scenarios heading into Week 18 of the NFL season. It should be a fun weekend of games. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We'll catch you on the next video. Peace.